Good morning and welcome to Premier's Corner with daily technical update. It's Friday, the 1st of January. And again, I have to remind you that this is for educational purposes only. There's no recommendation or advice whatsoever intended in doing these videos. Well, U.S. market was closed yesterday due to the funeral of President Carter, and so the picture hasn't really changed much, of course. So just recap. If you want a more in-depth analysis of the U.S. markets, check out the Thursday edition, where I also looked at the weekly chart, and so with a little bit medium term. However, let's move on to S&P 500. Still key support here, 5,864, and this gap area, that is really key. If it closes below the cloud, below 100 and below this lower part of the gap, 5,783, well, then we have confirmed the bearish trend. There's negative sentiment on the RSI indicating lower levels. However, looking at the Nasdaq 100, the picture is a little bit different here, forming a descending triangle-like pattern. And the RSI is forming this wedge-like pattern, falling wedge-like pattern. And what we could see is that sometimes we actually see that the RSI or the indicator is actually breaking out of its pattern before we actually see it on the actual price graph. So that is something to keep an eye on. There's still positive sentiment. There's no divergence here. So a little bit diverging from the S&P 500 index pattern or picture. So it's who's going to win here? Will it be Nasdaq that will move back higher, or will it be S&P dragging everything down? So that would be key question here the next couple of days. We have to wait and see about that. But 20,895 is support there. If it takes out that, and especially with a close below, well, then we could see a larger correction on or sell-off on Nasdaq 100. The Dow Jones index, key support 42,220. If it takes out that, we have downtrend confirmed or further confirmed, and resuming here. RSI, negative sentiment, no divergence, indicating we could see lower levels, but let's see about that. What we can also do here, we can add a trend line. Say, okay, if it breaks below that trend line RSI there, then it's likely to move lower on the actual price graph. Moving on to what's happening in Asia this morning, we have Seng dropping further down almost 1%, so very close to test the 19,000 level. So some support, you can see also back from here in November. We seem destined to take it out. I think we will take it out. We are negative sentiment on the RSI, all moving averages, not all, but so 21 and 55 declining. We are below 100, so I think we'll see a dip lower here in the coming week. EuroStoxx50 had a fairly okay day yesterday, closed at new highs, and is pushing towards the previous all-time highs, towards 5,120. Whether we'll get there is debatable, but there is a potential to it with some overhead resistance just below 5,070 area, and support here at 4,900 that should hold. Otherwise, we can have a complete different situation. DAX was more or less unchanged, but it still has potential to push higher. Let's see about that. If it takes out the previous peak here, well, previous all-time high, well, then we're looking at 21,000 area. But let's see if that can actually materialize. It looks a little bit stressed short term, but I think we will slowly crawl higher. And as long as we stay above 19,650, it is in a bullish trend, at least for now. Euro dollars continue to slide lower, but what is key to watch is the lows from last week, 102.20, 102.25, around that level. So if we're looking here at the weekly chart, if it takes out that, well, then there's potential lower, and I think we could push lower. But and let's zoom in on the daily one again. We are in a negative sentiment, but there is divergence indicating a short-term trend exhaustion. Not on the medium trend, but on a short-term trend exhaustion. So if it starts growing back above 40 again, then we could see also it will support a strong bounce, but it needs to break above this falling trend line here. If it takes out the rising trend line here on the RSI, then we are likely to see a push below 102 on euro dollar. Cable pushed lower and has taken out supports. Let's have a look at that. You see here on the weekly chart 123. The spike down here back from April last year, and there's not much support until around 120 area 121. Negative sentiment, no divergence. There's divergence here on the daily, as you can see, but if it takes out the and drops below the lower rising trend line, it will further confirm the downtrend on cable. Euro sterling, that we talked about yesterday, of course, and the previous days, but when it actually broke this falling trend line here in the wedge-like pattern, falling wedge-like pattern, trading around the 83.75, spiked well above 84, and it has potential up to 84.5 in this region here. And if we're looking at the weekly chart, there's still some way to go up to the upper falling trend line here. And that will be around 84, just below 85. And I think we'll get there. We are in a bullish trend, bullish sentiment on the short term, no divergence. And we have had divergence here on the RSI for quite some time, and now it's trying to push higher. I think we'll see euro sterling pushing higher here in the coming weeks. The yen pairs has have in general been fairly quiet the past few weeks. Dollar yen crawling slowly higher, but not very convincing, and still divergence on the RSI. You see, it's not really supporting this bullish move here. However, there is no resistance on dollar yen until around 162. Will we get there? That's definitely debatable. I would say that's not a slam dunk. And if it takes out 155.95, we will probably see a larger correction down to 154, 53 maybe. Euro yen. Euro yen, well, also just range bound area here around 162, 163, needs to get back above 165, and it needs to break below 159.80 for a clear direction. Aussie yen, well, Aussie yen also fairly boring, always falling asleep now. Testing the lower rising trend line here. It's not that strong really. We have negative sentiment on the RSI, indicating we are likely to see a bearish breakout. We are below 55 and 100 moving averages, and we are below the cloud. So I think it will break it and slide lower. If it moves back above 99.40, then we could maybe establish a bullish trend. The sterling yen. Some movements, but still in this range here between 100 and 193.5 and up to around just below 200. We are above the cloud. We are positive sentiment on the RSI. I'm not convinced that it will actually break higher, but let's see. For now, I would stay sideline. I can't get a clear picture what's actually going on with sterling yen at the moment, so I will wait and see if it was me locked in here between the 100 moving average and the 55 at the moment. So, I mean, I'm grasping for straws here. It's like, so forget it for a while, but keep an eye on it, just one eye on it and see, okay, will it suddenly break below the cloud area, or will it start moving higher here towards the 200 level? Aussie dollar testing the lows here, just around 61.70.80. Spike below. There is a slight divergence on the RSI. We should see a correction, and we can also see on the weekly chart why we are here at the lows here back from 2022, and we really have to go really far back here to 2020 to see lower levels if it takes out that. And I think we are in an exhausted mood, but I need confirmation by breaking above this falling trend line for a correction at least. Medium term, I still think medium to long term, I think we'll still see lower levels on Aussie dollar. Dollar Canada fell off a cliff, and then it bounced strongly back, as we can see here. 143.35 got back crawling towards the previous peak here at 144.67. If it takes out that, well, then it will resume uptrend towards 146, 147. The dollar Canada, that has reached its shoulder potential, as indicated by these two vertical arrows, and then some. So it's a dip below the 200 moving average. We are still in a bearish trend. There's no sign of exhaustion, so I think we could maybe bounce a little bit back towards 178, but then I think we'll see a next sell-off down to around 175 level in this region here. That could be seen. On the weekly, we can see how it's currently testing the lower rising trend line here, and if it takes out that, well, then we're looking 175. If it takes out 175, well, then there's even lower levels to look out for. But let's talk about that when and if that situation arises. EuroSwift still caught in this fairly range trading area, but with the lows here being higher and higher. So we are in a slight bullish trend, fairly weak, but still we are positive sentiment on the RSI. Could see it pushing towards 94.50, but it needs to take out that for another push to and above 95. If it starts breaking below the low rising trend line here, well, then downtrend is likely to resume. Dollar Swiss, a little bit different picture, of course. Dollar Swiss is pushing towards the previous peak here at 91.37, and that little correction, it was not much, and if it takes out that, well, then we are looking at levels around 92.45, at least on the medium term. Of course, we are a little bit stressed at the moment. I will actually remove this because it's just messing up the picture a little bit. Let's see if we can get back above get above 91.57. If we can do that, then we're looking at 92.45. And the dollar index, almost similar picture here on the dollar index, pushing to take out the 109.37. And if it does that, well, then it's just resuming uptrend. And well, it actually has resumed uptrend, but can it follow through? And on the weekly, we see there's not really much resistance. So we are looking at 110 at the moment. And what we can do, just to guesstimate a little bit, we have the Fibonacci retracement. See, okay, this correction here, what kind of energy does it give? Well, it gives energy to 110, which is 138.2 projection, and 110.5, and I think that's where we are moving fairly shortly. As long as we stay above 107.58, that is the scenario that I think we'll see playing out with higher levels to above 110. Gold closed yesterday above the cloud and above 26.65.5, and following through today, establishing the bullish trend with higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. But there's a little bit of a worry here that RSI hasn't closed above 60 threshold. I really want to see that to further confirm the uptrend, and we have the 55 moving average that is actually declining a little bit, dragging on it a little bit here at the moment. So let's see if it can actually be a sustainable move here, with a push up and take out 27.21. We can see here on the weekly chart, well, we are in a bullish trend. We have this big correction here. RSI is in a positive sentiment. There's no divergence, indicating we could see higher levels on gold here in 2025 and possibly in a few weeks or so. But still, I want confirmation also in the short term. But it seems like we are building up something. Let me do this. It seems like we're also forming this triangle-like pattern here. If it takes out the upper falling trend line, then I will believe it even more, and even more if it closes above 60 threshold on the RSI. The silver is not really doing much. I mean, it's trying to crawl higher, but it is really heavy, and will it slide back? I mean, normally they do work a little bit in tandem, but silver is fairly slow at the moment. It still has potential up to around 31, 55 moving average coming down, putting a lid on it, and 100 also. So it seems to be the heavier one of them. I would prefer gold at the moment, to be honest. Copper, on the other hand, testing resistance at 433.50. If it closes above that, then it has confirmed this double bottom-like pattern, and with the potential higher. RSI is supporting the bullish view that it will push higher, but we could see a little bit of a setback before a next move higher. And if it closes above 433.50, well, then there's potential up to around 450. On the energy side, well, crude oil is slowly crawling higher after testing the support here at 72.80. I think we'll see it crawling higher towards 77, 78 in the coming weeks. Could test the upper falling trend line here on the weekly chart. I don't think it will take out 78.46 resistance. We have the 200 moving average. So let's see. But let's talk about that next week so we see where the picture is. Brent crude oil, same picture, pushing higher. I think we could see it pushing towards 80, 81. On the Dutch TTF gas, was very close yesterday. Let's zoom in a little bit there. Very close to reach the 61.8 retracement at 43.5. We talked about it. So and then it bounced, and now we are trading around the 55 moving average again. So that maybe could be that. But let's see. If it takes out the lows from yesterday, maybe we'll have a larger correction. But if it starts crawling back above the cloud area here and back above 46, well, then I think uptrend will resume with a potential up to 56, 57. The Henry Hub gas, still same story really for upside potential. Henry Hub gas and Nat gas, it really needs to close above $4. If it does that, well, then there's suddenly more upside potential. And with the move here this morning, maybe that will materialize. But let's see about that. We are in a bullish trend, but it is struggling a little bit at the moment. On the US Treasury yields, well, it didn't form this top and reversal pattern, at least just not yet. And this morning seems like we are continuing to crawl higher, but let's see how the day and week ends, and then we have an idea. If we close above 473.50, 475, I will say, well, then there's potential up to 5%. And I am bullish on yields. I think they will, unfortunately, crawl higher towards 5% and maybe also even higher here in 2025. The 2-year is stuck in a range still between 415 and 437. If it takes out 437, 438, well, uptrend has resumed. I also think that we'll see on the weekly chart it has resumed with potential to 450 and possibly higher, but 450 around that level, that there's some strong resistance. Moving on to EuroBund, and I have digged out the yield and not just the future. We have been looking at the future for some time, but here we have the yields, EuroBund yields, 2.5% trading around or moving around that level. We are in a bullish trend. I think we could slide back a little bit. We can see that the RSI is a little bit stretched, but it's in a positive sentiment, no divergence, indicating likely higher levels. And if we're zooming out a little bit, we can see what's actually going on. Seems like it formed this big triangle-like pattern, and I think we'll see here in the coming weeks or months, we will see it slowly crawling higher towards 270 area, and then we are back to the 2024 peak area, and that could be interesting if it takes out that level. Looking at the UK gilts, you will see it also really smashed higher yesterday, and it is falling through today. So really, this is the UK 10-year yields that is pushing higher, and we have looked at it previously, and let's just adjust this. The TradingView chart is not that good for it, but however, we can see on the weekly we are pushing higher here, and I think we'll see UK 10-year pushing towards 5.25, 5.5 in the coming months. Crypto and Bitcoin, it could be at a crossroads. You see it's very close to the 91,000 a couple of times. If it takes it out, here I have indicated that little spike down here, 90,682, around that level. If it takes out, well, then we could see a collapse down to around 74, 73, maybe even 72,000. Fairly, it could hurt really badly. You can see I just these this vertical arrow is just copied down here and say, well, this is the top. You can see it's kind of a shoulder-like pattern, and we have this, and let me just move. You can see a top and reversal pattern there with a doji evening. On the Ethereum, well, also fairly heavy. If it takes out 3,100, especially 3,000, well, then we are looking at 2.5, 2,400 area fairly quickly. I believe we could see that. So brace yourself, and if you're long, well, maybe hope for a bounce. But we need to look at that. All right, that's all for today. Have a nice day and a nice weekend. Talk to you again Monday.